Hello and welcome back to another EDH deck design video. Today I'm going to be showing a temporary experimental deck I'm running. A lot of friends in one of my specific metas are pushing to have access to the non-commander planeswalkers as their commander. I keep pointing out that if they were to do that, I would of course run Koth, and then they just keep putting up arguments that he's too powerful, and really it's a bad argument because a lot of the planeswalkers are just not suitable for commander. But that got me thinking, since they're not essentially allowing me to play Koth in that area, and I'm pretty sure they're just about done with that whole conversation. It got me thinking that his emblem is actually very much possible with Kumano as a general. If you saw my Latoya Kellen Overseer deck, you might have remembered me talking about how Kumano here is potentially a strictly better version of what I wanted to do in that deck. In that deck, it was more of a control creature hate deck where I try to get either infinite mana or an absurd amount of mana to burn an opponent for like 180 or some ridiculous amount from damage doublers, mana doublers, and whatnot. While she requires to tap in an X and discard, Kumano, although is a spammable one, what his ability is 1 and a red. He does 1 damage to target creature or player, and if that creature would die, then it is exiled. So even if I'm not going to spam a whole bunch, I can just put 1 damage onto a creature from a board wipe and cause an exile. He is also 5 mana, but unlike Latoya, she's a 3/3, he is a 4/4, which makes him out of Anger of the God range. So I basically put together a goal. Koth's emblem is 1 mountain taps to do 1 damage. It's very easy to make his ability that effect. I found 10 cards that make that happen. So let me go ahead and throw them through the deck real quick. Koth is in the deck, I just have them out for comparison. Kumano over here, let's stick them over here too. So the group I'm playing this with is also a little bit different. This is a mass multiplayer group. So this deck is very much different from a lot of my other mono red decks where I'm actually playing a lot of creatures. I took some of the history out of my Latoya deck to put into this one, where I had her more resilient for a period, so there's a lot of strange creatures in here. Let's go through the normal ones first. Goblin Welders, of course, perfect for shenanigans. I like these two guys because they are early offense, but they can also lay back defense and make people not want to. They're kind of a pseudo rattlesnake where people may not want me to bust them on their artifact accelerant. Vishino Heretic is one of my favorites for just repeatable artifact removal. Dualcaster Mage is great in a larger multiplayer group where there's a higher chance of people playing big splashy spells. Definitely like my Magus effects. It's always good to screw over everyone's non-basics. Then I got my normal ramp in here. This one's not really ramp, it just replaces itself. But he's definitely ramp. I love my Shard Phoenix, especially when paired with a Skull Clamp. Most people don't know about this particular artwork. The normal Shard Phoenix is very ugly. There's a Junior series and a JSS series where you can get this special artwork in a high foil, which of course makes it impossible to read. It is 5 mana for a 2/2 flyer. I can sack him anytime I want to do 2 damage to all creatures without flying. On my upkeep, I can pay 3 red to bounce him back. So this and Skull Clamp is great. Again, in a massive multiplayer area, lots of spells. Mindclaw Shaman actually has a place. I really like this card. It's just since most of my play groups are 2 to 3 opponents, and they're very controlling and essentially very powerful with decks I go up against. Mindclaw doesn't usually fit well, but when I have about 6 or so opponents and the games are slower, he fits really nicely. Duplicates my normal removal. And Steel Hellkite is here kind of as just a temporary beater or something to back up with in the air. I don't have a lot of flying in this deck, so he's kind of necessary here. Of course, a sad thing with big beater artifact creatures is he's very susceptible to easy commonplace removal. Godo here is to 2-drop one of the important equipment to go with him. And Inferno Tie is a normal win condition. So here's the rest of the creatures that are kind of unique. I started one of my Latoya builds like this, and it dwindled down a little bit when I started playing her against less opponents. But I actually am going with an indestructible route here with all these creatures. Soul is, of course, not always indestructible, but he's here to kind of keep all my other permanents in check. But then I have essentially all the cute indestructible ones I could get. He's essentially there just for defense. I do have one funny thing I can do with him to make him offensive, but we'll get there. Stuffy Doll is, I think, the only indestructible one that's left in my Latoya deck. Creepy Doll is another kind of ward, something to keep people away from me. The Gargoyle is a potential flyer, but he's mostly going to be as a defender. And these two were my favorites to run in Latoya because the Flash, when my Latoya had swords, I could drop this to pseudo chump block, or then have him hasty on the next turn if I flash him out. And a flying indestructible is also a very good thing as well. And then I'm not running Ulamog, but I am running these guys. Again, in my groups, Infect is 15 in EDH, so he's not a one-hit kill. But I'm definitely running damage doublers in here. So both of these are basically like the late-game bombs. So that's over 20 creatures. That's a lot more. I think it's 25 creatures. I usually run around 10 in my mono-red decks. So I'm actually taking a lot of spells. Very few spells in this deck. Essentially the vital ones to maintain my deck. Try not to do too much target removal since it's mass multiplayer. So I got my 2 wheel effects to keep cards up. Vandal Blast hits all opponents. Chaos Warp is something I really don't like the chance of backfiring it on. It's nice to get rid of any permanent, so I do tend to put this in and out of every now and then. But being a mass multiplayer, this does cause some shenanigans, which is kind of fun. Ruination is, of course, it's going to hit all everyone. Anger of the Gods is one of my favorite wipes because his toughness is over 3. It means this is not going to exile or kill him. Blast is our better wipe. And All Is Dust is our main wipe, essentially because I can't deal with enchantments and a lot of other problem stuff. Of course, there's a friend with a Sigarda deck in the group, so this kind of kills it. Going on to the enchantments. We're getting. I'll start pointing out the 10 cards that are very important with Kumano. I'll leave them to a side. I am still running these 2 gimmick cards as a late game bomb. Since I'm running all the damage doublers, obviously these could be a very devastating blow. Obviously not as devastating as in the Chroma deck, but still on a Darksteel mirror, something like this is kind of funny. So we're definitely running these 2 just for shenanigans. Siege or Outpost Siege, I am highly suggesting this in any deck that is mono red or maybe red that doesn't have good draw. It's essentially this Chandra 0 ability where it happens on my upkeep, and it's just free card advantage, possibly pseudo card advantage because I may not be able to cast it. This is the first of the 10 cards. This is probably the worst one. I don't like running this normally, but it's only a 3-drop mana doubler, so the best way to play this is after I have an already suitable board presence, after the opponents have already been dwindled down, because with just doubling my mana, granted it's not 1 mountain equating to 1 damage, it's 2, or, well yeah it is, it's 1 mountain then becomes 2 mana to do 1 damage. Then I have the damage doublers, so 2 mountains, or 2 mana equating to 2 damage, 2 damage, and 2 damage. So these 4 are our first effects that essentially make him have a pseudo Koth emblem. Let's keep those up there while we go on through the rest. There is, of course, Koth. I wouldn't be running this without him. I like to have his emblem with this. Sharkin is a placeholder till I get a Chandra. I need another Pyromaster. I just don't have enough. Let's go on through the artifacts. There is my normal accelerant in here. Since it is multiplayer, like mass multiplayer, it's important to have some artifacts that can sacrifice themselves in case a Bane of Progress hits. I just like Bauble no matter what, because I'm mono red with a Valakut out. This could be a Lightning Bolt. There's, of course, a Soul Ring. Again, I can stack this late game. If someone's going to board wipe artifacts, I can get benefit. Darksteel Ingot's not going to go anywhere. And again, it can stack itself, so I can get some benefit if it's going to get wiped. This is really good in mass multiplayer because it's going to net me a lot of cards. I stress this all the time, but something like this is very passive and nets you card advantage over a longer period. So in non-hyper-competitive formats, this is a very good card to add. Torpor Orb is, of course, there to keep our stuff safe. This is the next card. This is probably the most important one. Just dropping him from 2 mana to 1 mana to activate. Essentially making it red instead of colorless and red. So this is immediately going up here. So just that alone makes him a pseudo Koth emblem. And this is the artifact I'm going to get Godo with. There's other equipment too, but this is the best one because it's a double effect. So I can pay 2 to get 2 damage instead of 1. Skull Clamp made the cut, of course, for the Shard Phoenix. Basilisk Collar on him is ridiculous because it becomes 2 mana to exile a targetable creature. Lightning Grease, of course, to keep him safe. I have a lot of creatures in this deck, so the Shroud to re-equip another equipment is not a problem. And of course I'm doing a lot of damage, so I don't want him to die. I'm hoping someone won't try to wrath him away. This is probably the, I can't say 11th, but it's kind of like 10.5. This is going to double some of the effects coming up here, because there's more mana doublers. Just like the Mana Flare, if my mountain's tapped for 2, that means 1 mountain equates to 1 damage. I don't like running this one too, especially in mass multiplayer, because there's a higher chance of it getting removed, and it makes me lose a land. But of course I have the 3 that do, so all 3 of these double my manas. And then the Sculpting Steel, I suppose, could be the one on top. Coercive Portal in 1v1, this is nice because it's essentially an extra card. But in multiplayer, I don't have a lot of effects to board wipe. I don't really want to put a Nerve Rolls disc in here, since I can't immediately untap it. Like, I can't twiddle it and bob it. But this causes fun shenanigans. It's just usually nets you a few extra cards. Since I have a lot of indestructible stuff, and I play smartly, I hold on to the important stuff up here until later. This will give me a few extra cards. This will give me a lot of extra cards, assuming the opponents don't immediately deal with it. And same thing. Let's go through the lands as the final bit here. I'm only running 37 in this deck. That's 2 less than my Latoya deck, but my Latoya deck's requirement of the lands is so high and important. I'm putting more delicate cards in here. May eventually go to 38. But running the double land, I don't really want to put an Ancient Tomb out there because that tends to cause unwanted attention. In mass multiplayer, you don't really want to have a focus on you. But this helps me ramp. Of course, I got the Valakut Terrain Generator. And Mystifying Maze is a placeholder. I don't normally run it, but it's something that can kind of keep me safe, I suppose. And the 32 mountains. The rest of these are, if you saw my Rockamar video, you know I have a passion for the Avon Mountains, especially from the Kamigawa block. I got these because they have matching stat symbol. All of these are the ones with a bridge in it. The artwork number 301 is my favorite, and that's in my Rockamar deck. Let's go through and re-emphasize a couple things here. So, yeah, let's get the Sculpting Steel out of the way. There's 10 cards here. With just any one of these 10 cards out, I have a pseudo Koth emblem with my general. The most important thing to keep in mind with this setup, the Koth emblem cannot be, like, an opponent cannot deal with that. It's just a permanent, well, it's not permanent, it's a card in the command zone. They cannot deal with it and remove it. They can bounce on my lands, like Sunder, that's going to deal with it, I suppose. But these cards right here, while I can have my general and one of these out, the opponent can deal with that. It's not a solid thing. The fun thing, of course, is that if I have 2 of these out, that means 1 mana is equating to 2 damage. 3 of these is probably 1 mana equating to 4 damage, and it gets worse and worse over time. Doing mass multiplayer, the games, of course, are slow, and if you play smart, you will hold on to at least 1 or 2 till you can drop them. From play testing so far, the games usually last up to over 10th turn. I've gotten him to do at least 4 damage per activation and just nuke the board. And of course, it's not something like, I don't mind running him out and just holding on to this to late game, because dealing with a board wipe, I can just ping creatures and make sure they never are recurred from the graveyard. Really good against Revelark or the Prophet Krufix and the shenanigans you're seeing nowadays. But yeah, this is mostly just an experiment. I like the effect that he puts out there. I do know that if I were to optimize this, he would actually be better than my current Latoya list. The problem is I have a preference for Latoya. It's I guess a fandom for her, because I love her story, the artwork, the cards is subpar, but her character is brilliant. So I may not fully dump. Well, I'll probably optimize this just to see how well he can do, but I don't know how long this deck is going to last. But as a suggestion, definitely check out the Latoya video. And something like this, it may be functional in a 1v1 competitive setup. It's not going to be very reliable, since you are requiring a few cards to make him decent. Not just do okay, but decent. The fun thing is, of course, if you can get more than one of these out. Now, a lot of people like comparing him to Olivia, the vampire. She has an activated ability where she can also ping creatures. She cannot hit players, and she also grows when she hits the creatures. She also does not have the exile effect. She has a theft effect where you can pay more. A lot of people think that Olivia is just straight up better than him. Not really. They are both good at their own thing. She is probably better in a control setup for like theft, maybe semi-Voltron, since she gets bigger. He is good in a long-term grind or somewhat attrition style deck. I guess Olivia could be built like that too, but she's not really optimized for that. But yeah, this is just a generic idea. I know, I'm trying to remember anything else that could fit. There's 10 cards exactly that make him have the pseudo-Koth effect. There's also a Goblin that you flip him upside down and he makes your red sources do 1 extra damage, so that could do it too. I'm not going to bother with that. I was hoping the Pyromancer's Gauntlet would work on this, but of course he's not a Planeswalker. That doesn't even work on the Koth's Emblem, by the way, because Emblem is not a Planeswalker, that's an emblem. But, yeah, this is an interesting play. The indestructible creature play there is, of course, not very efficient in a competitive environment or against 1 or 2 opponents. Against a table full of people, it's good for late games because it's hard to get rid of them. But yeah, it's just a unique build. Any suggestions or ideas, definitely let me know.